JOBY Aviation reportedly exploring acquisition of Blade Air Mobility. JOBY Aviation is considering acquiring helicopter service provider Blade Air Mobility, according to Bloomberg News, which cited sources familiar with the matter. The discussions are still preliminary and no final decision has been made, with JOBY potentially opting not to proceed, the People said.
Palantir lands record $10 billion deal with U.S. Army. Palantir Technologies has secured a landmark enterprise deal with the U.S. Army valued at up to $10 billion over 10 years. The agreement consolidates 75 contracts, 15 prime and 60 related, into one unified deal. It enables the Army and other Department of Defense agencies to purchase Palantir's commercial software with volume-based discounts, aiming to enhance military readiness, drive operational efficiency, and deliver cost efficiencies. The award is one of the biggest DoD contracts ever, The Washington Post reported, and is the largest ever awarded to Palantir. JOBY Aviation and L3 Harris collaborate on military use of VTOL aircraft. JOBY Aviation and L3 Harris are teaming up to explore military applications for JOBY's gas turbine hybrid VTOL aircraft. The collaboration will integrate JOBY's vertical takeoff and landing tech with L3 Harris's military-grade expertise on sensors, effectors, communication, and collaborative autonomy. Designed for low-altitude missions, the aircraft supports both piloted and autonomous modes. Flight testing begins this fall, with demos planned for 2026.
Cannabis rescheduling has Trump's quiet support, Scott's CEO reveals. Scott's Miracle-Gro CEO Jim Hagedorn told Fox Business that President Donald Trump has privately backed marijuana rescheduling since taking office for his second term in January. Hagedorn said he's had multiple conversations with Trump on cannabis reform and that Trump has assured him and others of continued support. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice's Biden-era proposal to move cannabis to a lower risk category under the Controlled Substances Act remains under DEA review. Transmedics soars as FDA approves landmark heart preservation study. Transmedics Group shares rose after the FDA granted conditional approval for a clinical trial of its next-generation OCS enhanced heart system designed to improve organ preservation for transplants. The trial is set to enroll over 650 patients, making it the largest heart transplant preservation study in the world, the company said. Part A of the trial is designed to evaluate long-term heart perfusion using the OCS heart system. Part B is expected to assess whether OCS perfusion outperforms traditional static cold storage in donation after brain death cases.
U.S. to fast-track plan for nuclear reactor on the Moon, ISS replacement. The U.S. is accelerating plans to build a nuclear reactor on the Moon, according to a Politico report. Acting NASA Director and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is expected to announce the move this week, setting a definitive timeline for lunar nuclear power. The directive reportedly pushes NASA to solicit proposals for a 100-kilowatt reactor to launch by 2030, significantly larger than the previously funded research into a 40-kilowatt reactor for use on the Moon. The first country to have a reactor on the Moon could declare a keep-out zone which would significantly inhibit the United States, the directive reportedly states, a sign of the Trump administration's concern about a joint project China and Russia have launched. Duffy also aims to fast-track the replacement of the International Space Station, aligning with broader U.S. ambitions for lunar and Martian exploration amid tightening budgets.
JOBY Aviation confirms $125 million Blade acquisition to accelerate eVTOL rollout. JOBY Aviation has confirmed it will acquire Blade Air Mobility's urban air passenger business, including its US and European operations, lounges, terminals, and the Blade brand, for up to $125 million in stock or cash. The deal excludes Blade's medical unit, which will become a standalone company named Strata Critical Medical, and continue a long-term partnership with JOBY, making JOBY its preferred vertical takeoff and landing partner for organ transport. JOBY expects this acquisition to fast-track commercialization by leveraging Blade's existing infrastructure and customer base, particularly in New York City and Southern Europe. The move reduces JOBY's need for new infrastructure and cuts down on customer acquisition costs. It also gives JOBY access to Blade's decade of expertise in premium urban air travel.
ChatGPT races to 700 million weekly users, nears 20 billion revenue run rate ahead of GPT-5 launch. This week, ChatGPT is on track to reach 700 million weekly active users, up from 500 million at the end of March and 4 times since last year, said Nick Turley, OpenAI's head of product, in a post on X Monday. The company's annual recurring revenue has surged to $13 billion, with projections to hit $20 billion by year-end. Meanwhile, CEO Sam Altman said GPT-5 is coming soon, with speculation pointing to a possible launch this month.
Trump administration plans to cancel $7 billion in solar grants for low-income families. These grants were part of the Solar for All program, funded by the Inflation Reduction Act under President Biden. The Environmental Protection Agency is preparing termination letters for 60 nonprofits and state agencies that received the funds, intending to send them by week's end. This move reflects a broader effort by the Trump administration to claw back billions in climate-related grants, having already attempted to cancel $20 billion out of the $27 billion authorized under the climate law. It's unclear how much of the $7 billion solar funding has already been spent.
BWX Technologies hits record high as NASA eyes nuclear reactor on the moon. BWX Technologies stock surged 17.8% to an all-time high on Tuesday, leading gains among nuclear-related companies. The rally followed reports that U.S. Secretary of Transportation and acting NASA Administrator Sean Duffy is set to unveil accelerated plans to place a nuclear reactor on the moon. BWX stood out because it is already the U.S. Navy's primary nuclear reactor supplier and has been collaborating with NASA and the Department of Energy on nuclear thermal propulsion since 2017. According to William Blair analyst Jed Dorsheimer, BWX's strong earnings highlight why it is our most robust pure play in nuclear, adding that it should be seen by investors as a core holding in the nuclear energy sector.
SERV robotics teams with Uber and Little Caesars to deliver pizza using autonomous robots. The pilot program is live in Los Angeles, where customers can now receive their pizza orders via SERV's sidewalk robots. This move expands SERV's growing presence in autonomous food delivery, which already includes partnerships with Shake Shack, 7-Eleven, and several local restaurants.
Beyond visual line of sight, rule change could supercharge commercial drone use. The Department of Transportation is preparing to ease restrictions on commercial drone flights, a move that could significantly boost drone-based delivery and industrial applications. The proposed rule, called Beyond Visual Line of Sight, would eliminate the need for case-by-case approvals and allow more long-range drone flights beyond an operator's direct line of sight. The rule change could benefit major delivery players like Walmart, Amazon, UPS, and FedEx, while also accelerating drone use in sectors like manufacturing, agriculture, energy, and healthcare. Companies expected to benefit include Alphabet's Wing, Dragonfly, AeroVironment, as well as privately owned Zipline Technologies, Matternet, and Flytrax. Why NASA's Artemis moon program is going nuclear. NASA is accelerating its Artemis program to win a new space race by building the first lunar base by 2030, beating China and Russia. To power long-term operations, NASA is going nuclear with a 100-kilowatt fission microreactor, 5 years ahead of rival nations, since solar power isn't viable during the moon's 2-week darkness cycle. There's a certain part of the moon that everyone knows is the best. We have ice and sunlight there, and we want to get there first and claim that for America, NASA's acting administrator Sean Duffy declared. Artemis 2 will orbit the moon in the first half of 2026, followed by Artemis 3's crewed landing in 2027, the first crewed moon landing since 1972. If both missions succeed, the U.S. will begin sending equipment to the moon's south pole through unmanned missions, laying the groundwork for astronauts to assemble the first permanent human base on the lunar surface. The NASA program, called Fission Surface Power, is helping energize some nuclear names back on Earth. Centrus Energy expands $3.6 billion backlog as high-assay, low-enriched uranium output nears 1 metric ton. Centrus Energy announced progress in its advanced nuclear fuel efforts, expanding its $3.6 billion backlog and reaching a new production milestone of 900 kilograms of high-assay, low-enriched uranium, approaching 1 metric ton in total production for the U.S. Department of Energy. President and CEO Amir V. Vexler emphasized that, "We continue to receive shipments of enriched uranium, and our operations have not been significantly impacted by macroeconomic events." Centrus remains optimistic about receiving part of the $3.4 billion DOE funding aimed at jump-starting domestic nuclear fuel production. Vexler said, "Given the administration's urgency and focus on energy dominance, we remain optimistic that a decision will be made soon."
JOBY nears FAA certification. Current focus is on type inspection authorization. CEO JOBY Beavert said, "We're delivering at an exceptional level on all fronts, on certification, on manufacturing, and on commercialization." JOBY Aviation is making strong progress toward FAA certification, with Stage 4 now 70% complete on their end and over 50% on the FAA side, marking a 10-point increase from last quarter. Christine T. Liwag, Morgan Stanley, questioned Stage 4 certification progress. Beavert clarified, "On the JOBY side, we're 70% complete, and so the remaining 30% will come in over the next year or so. We do not need to be at 100% on Stage 4 prior to beginning the type inspection authorization work." The first of 5 aircraft for TIA testing has entered final assembly. Beavert also emphasized that JOBY is substantially out of policy, if not completely, with the FAA, and the current focus is finalizing TIA test plans.
Redwire launches SpaceMD to grow life-saving drugs in orbit. Redwire Corporation has launched a new venture, SpaceMD, aimed at commercializing pharmaceutical development in microgravity. The company will use Redwire's pharmaceutical in-space laboratory, pillbox technology, to grow seed crystals in orbit to create new and reformulated pharmaceuticals on Earth. The microgravity environment in space allows seed crystals to grow more uniformly and with fewer imperfections, leading to higher quality crystals that can improve pharmaceutical drug development. 28 pillbox systems have already flown in space and have successfully crystallized 17 compounds on the ISS, including insulin and other critical molecules. SpaceMD will sell or license these seed crystals to companies that can use them to create reformulated versions of existing drugs or entirely new therapeutics. As part of this initiative, SpaceMD signed a first-of-its-kind licensing agreement with Excess Libero Pharma to enhance its bone disease treatment drug ELP-004.
Solid power advances, solid-state battery tech with BMW i7 test vehicle and SK on pilot line progress. CEO John C. Van Scoter highlighted a significant achievement with BMW, which introduced its i7 test vehicle powered by Solid Power's cells and battery tech. The company also completed factory acceptance testing for SK On's pilot line, supporting SK On's efforts to develop solid-state cells using Solid Power's electrolyte technology. Progress continues on the electrolyte production roadmap, with detailed design underway for a continuous sulfide electrolyte manufacturing pilot line at SP2, targeting a capacity of 75 metric tons. This effort is supported by $3.3 million in Department of Energy reimbursements, and Van Scoter confirmed the line is on track for commissioning in 2026. Firefly Aerospace soars past $10 billion in stellar IPO debut. Firefly Aerospace made a spectacular NASDAQ debut Thursday, hitting $73.85 in its first hour and pushing its market cap above $10 billion at its peak. Earlier this year, Firefly made history with its Blue Ghost mission, becoming the first private firm to land and operate on the Moon and the first fully successful US lunar surface landing since Apollo over 50 years ago. SEC filings show 2024 revenue rose 10% to $60.8 million, with $55.9 million posted in Q1 2025. The company's contract backlog nearly doubled thanks to fresh government and commercial deals after reaching a $2 billion valuation in late 2024. Despite strong growth, Firefly remains unprofitable, with a $60.1 million net loss as of March 2025.
Rising geopolitical tensions propel ACHR into military arena. ACHR Aviation has acquired two major assets as it pivots toward military applications. The first acquisition involves a patent portfolio and key talent from Overair, a spin-off of Karem Aircraft. The second includes critical composite manufacturing assets and the approximately 60,000 square foot facility from Mission Critical Composites, a Southern California defense composite manufacturer. While financial terms remain undisclosed, ACHR stated it is reallocating significant resources from its original urban air taxi focus to military projects, citing geopolitical tensions and the U.S. defense sector's push for rapid adoption of AI, drones, and hybrid aircraft.
Amazon's Zoox makes history with first U.S. robotaxi safety exemption. Amazon's Zoox robotaxis have received a demonstration exemption from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, allowing them to operate without traditional manual driving controls like steering wheels and brake pedals. This is the first such exemption granted for American-built vehicles. The approval is strictly for demonstration purposes, not for commercial deployment.
M&M's maker uses gene editing to build climate-resilient cocoa plants. Mars, the maker of M&M's and Skittles, is leveraging CRISPR gene editing technology to strengthen cocoa production amid global supply challenges. Through a licensing deal with agricultural gene editing firm Pairwise, Mars will use its Fulcrum platform, which includes CRISPR tools, enzymes, and trait libraries, to develop more resilient cacao plants with desirable traits. The move aims to help crops better withstand climate change, disease, pests, and resource constraints. The initiative follows severe cocoa shortages in West Africa, responsible for 70% of global supply, where adverse weather and rising disease have driven cocoa prices to record highs of about $12,000 per ton.